We think of rivers as the lifeblood of civilization, right? They give us water, fertile land, paths for trade, but they also have this darker side, an absolutely immense destructive power. Today, we're going to dive into a river basin in Morocco, where for more than 1,000 years, that very duality, water as both creator and destroyer, has shaped history, life, and death. So let's zoom in. This is the Cebu River Basin just north of the incredible ancient city of Fez. Now, its unique geography makes it a chronic hotspot for just catastrophic floods. The whole story of this land is basically written in water, and it's a tale of both sustenance and pure survival. All right, here's our roadmap. First, we'll break down exactly why this land is so incredibly prone to flooding. Then, we're going to travel back in time to see how these floods have literally shaped history. We'll look at the devastating human cost, the different ways people have tried to tame the river, and finally, what modern science says we can do for a safer future. So, what's the deal here? What makes this specific region so dangerous? Well, it's not just one thing. It's this perfect storm of factors that are kind of baked right into the landscape itself. Let's break down the recipe for disaster. Okay, so 3 things are conspiring here. First, you've got the geology. Get this, 97% of the basin is made of clay and shale. Think of it like a giant waterproof sheet. The water has nowhere to soak in. Second, the topography. These rolling hills act like a massive funnel, channeling all that rainwater into the rivers with incredible speed. And third, the climate. You get these long, dry spells, and then bam, a sudden, violent downpour. So when that intense rain hits that non-absorbent, funnel-shaped land, the rivers have nowhere to go but up and out. And this is not a new problem, not by a long shot. The threat from the Cebu River goes back centuries. Historical records show this chillingly consistent pattern of destruction. It really shows you just how long this battle between people and the river has been going on. Just look at this timeline. We're talking more than 1,200 years ago. The founder of Fez, Idris I, saw the great floods in winter and was smart enough to build his city somewhere else. But the threat was always there. In 1302, a monster flood just swept everything away. In 1890, after weeks of nonstop rain, up to 100 people died. And in 1934, the river broke its banks twice in the same season. It's just this relentless historical pattern of destruction. And this isn't just data points on a timeline. A quote from an account of that 1302 flood, wow, it paints a terrifying picture. It describes a great torrent carrying away people and animals. More than 150 souls lost. It's a sobering reminder of the raw, untamable power of this river. And that's what it always comes down to, right? The cost is measured in human lives. The water just doesn't care who you are. It affects families, farmers, and as we're about to see, even modern armies learn to respect its power the hard way. Just think about this for a second. In one single flood, back in 1944, 75 homes were destroyed in one town. A chronicler at the time described the water backing up, rising through the streets, and just swallowing houses as people scrambled to save their children. An entire community's sense of security just washed away in an afternoon. You'd think a modern military would be no match for a river, right? Well, think again. In the early 20th century, the French army was repeatedly humbled by these floods. The torrents just swept away their equipment, tore down telegraph lines, and left entire units isolated for months. In one tragic case, a whole 7-man unit just vanished, trying to cross a swollen river. The river proved to be a more formidable opponent than any human force they faced. Okay, so when you're faced with a threat this relentless, this ancient, what do you even do? Over the centuries, we've seen 2 totally different philosophies emerge. The traditional approach, which was all about adapting to the water, and the modern ambition to control it completely. This slide shows such a fascinating contrast in thinking. For centuries, Moroccan communities practiced adaptation. Their philosophy was basically to live with the water. They came up with these clever local solutions like water storage basins to catch the overflow, and they built their communal granaries up on high ground to protect the harvest. They knew the floodplain was for farming in the right season, not for building your house. It was all local, cooperative, and built on generations of hard-won knowledge. And then, the era of modern engineering arrived with a totally different philosophy: control the water. We're talking massive, centralized projects, huge concrete dams, ambitious plans to reroute entire rivers. It was basically a war against nature rather than a dance with it. Which, of course, brings us to today. With all this history, are we any closer to a real solution? Well, modern science and data are giving us a much clearer picture of the risk and, maybe, a blueprint for a safer future. First off, the cause is crystal clear when you look at the data. This chart shows daily rainfall. I mean, look at those dramatic spikes. That peak right there in 2009, one station recorded 140 millimeters. That's over 5 inches of rain in a single day. That's the trigger. That's the sudden torrential downpour we were talking about. And if that rainfall is the cause, well, this chart right here is the effect. This shows the river's flow, or discharge, how much water is actually moving. In those same years, you can see the river's volume just explodes to over 2,000 cubic meters per second. To put that in perspective, that's like 100 backyard swimming pools of water rushing past a single point every single second. It's just a direct, massive response to that intense rain. So what's the game plan? Well, researchers have proposed this multi-pronged strategy. The recommendations include things like expanding the capacity of dams, reforesting the hillside so they can act like a sponge, reinforcing the riverbanks, building better roads and bridges, and, really importantly, creating effective early warning systems while also relocating people from the most dangerous zones. It's not just one magic bullet. It's a holistic blend of modern engineering and that traditional wisdom of adaptation. And this map kind of shows you the strategy in action. You can see the whole vision laid out. The green areas, that's a massive reforestation effort. You can also see the plans for reinforcing riverbanks. And see those dots? Those represent communities that would be relocated from the highest risk zones. It's a truly comprehensive vision for learning how to coexist more safely with the river. And this all brings us to our final, big question. For over 1,000 years, this river has been both a source of life and a bringer of ruin. The challenge today is how to honor that incredibly complex history while using modern knowledge not just to control the river, but to finally find a sustainable balance with it. How do you engineer for safety without erasing the deep natural and cultural legacy of a river that has shaped an entire nation? That is the profound question that Morocco faces today.